and I'm so pumped for the class today. We have a star in my books and everywhere, I guess, in social media, YouTube, everywhere. April has been so kind, like all the other speakers, in donating her time and expertise for this study group. And I'm always super excited. Every conference I get to go, if April is on the deck, on the roster, I'm always spending time listening. There is a lot of wisdom there. So I don't want to steal time from you, April. I have some announcements to make towards the end of the class. It's just
Okay.
more gifts that we want to give away to the participants of this program, but I'll talk about it at the very end. So we'll get started, and I'm sure people will just join us as they are able to. I can imagine their week is also tough, but yeah, we have about 20 people in the room right now, and let's hear from April. Multi-agent systems in the real world. I try to be just in how I would announce this class. I have tried, you know. Multi-agent orchestration myself, and for me it felt like mayhem. It felt like a high adrenaline pumped action movie. So I try to reproduce that sentiment there in the announcement. But I'm guessing, April is gonna bring, like peace and tranquility to the subject, and it'll all feel good at the end of it. So April, take it away. Thank you so
Awesome.
much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks, Victor. Yeah, that movie poster, that was pretty cool. Made me made it seem I don't know if this session will live up to the hype. It's not hopefully it's as action packed as that, but we'll see. Um, yeah, so just for everyone that doesn't know me, my name is April Dunnam. I work at Microsoft as a cloud advocate. Happy to reach out after this. We'll have time for Q&A after if you have any questions, of course. But I also have, as Victor mentioned, a YouTube channel. So if you want to follow me there, I have lots more videos on Copilot Studio and the Power Platform. And you can reach out to me on LinkedIn too if there's any questions after this. Feel free to reach out, and always happy to connect there. So what we're going to be talking about today is multi-agent systems, orchestration, all of that, and how that works in Copilot Studio. So what I have on the deck is just to explain what even is multi-agent orchestration, what does that mean, ways that we can connect agents in Copilot Studio, some patterns that you can follow, how to test these, and then, of course, demo. So we'll go over some concepts, some theory about what this is, what it works, and then we'll be very demo heavy here and show you an actual 2 different examples of multi-agent systems that we have here. So what do we mean when we say things like multi-agent orchestration? All it is at the very simplest level is multiple agents talking together and working together. That's really all it is. So why do we do this? Well, if you need to enable agents to talk to each other, and this isn't just Copilot Studio agents being able to talk to each other, but agents outside of Copilot Studio as well. So this could be your Fabric Data agents, Foundry agents, 365 Agents SDK, and even the agent-to-agent protocol that Google has there is all supported. So this really allows you to have scenarios where you have not only Copilot Studio integration, but cross-platform orchestration as well. And it really makes it to where you can specialize your agents, where each agent that you have has its own unique set of skills and really becomes a specialist rather than a generalist trying to do everything all at once. So when we look at multi-agent systems, so why do we use them? Why do we even think about building our solutions this way? Well, one, and the big important one is scalability, right? So when we orchestrate our agents in this way and build them out in this multi-agent orchestration way, it really allows for independent development and testing. So you don't have to have one person, one team building this big monolithic agent to solve everything. You can have, as I mentioned, those specialists and then individual people and teams working on those specialists. So it really enables the development process to go more smoothly and the testing process as well. It just really helps with the scalability of the solutions that you're building. Other one, as I mentioned, is the specialization element. Each agent can excel at a very specific task. So why is this important? Well, that really helps with being able to make sure that your agents are working as expected, right? When do agents start to really break? Well, it's when you have them try to do too many things at once. You can really make sure that your agents are better working, better and able to do what you needed to do if they're specialized in something a little bit more narrow. And that's what this pattern allows us to do. The other one is collaboration, right? Shared and being able to have these agents be shared and managed between different teams. So you might be working on a help desk agent, but you might have another team that's really specialized in being able to pull data from your knowledge database, right? And already has an agent for that. So your teams themselves can maintain and be specialists in the agents that they're building, but you can have that collaboration amongst them. The other big one is governance. We can't talk about multi-agent without touching on governance here. So not only are each agent that you build when you do the strategy specialist, but you can give each agent only the tools that they need. So if you're building one kind of monolithic agent and it needs to do multiple things, you're going to have to light up a lot of functionality and access to different tools and systems, which might be a little bit scary, might be a little bit of a risk when you think about it. So by doing this multi-agent approach, you can make sure that each agent only has the tools they need, and then you can shut off the agents for testing, and if you need to develop something, fix something, and all of that. Other one, maintainability. This goes without saying, but having one agent is really hard to maintain. So what do you do if something goes wrong, right? It could be you might have 5 different agent flows in there. You might have 10 different tools and something is broke and you have to take down the whole agent while you try to figure out what's going on and how to fix it. If you have a multi-agent architecture where each agent is a specialist, then those changes to one agent don't affect the other agents. So I can literally shut off from my main agent, say this sub-agent that does data collection, and then fix that agent, and then light it back up, and then my main agent will still be able to be used and nothing will be affected. So that maintainability is huge. So those are the benefits, right? So you sounds good. You're bought off on this and trying multi-agent architecture, but what are the approaches that we have to this in Copilot Studio? So there's 2 main ways that we can build multi-agent systems in Copilot Studio. The one is with a child agent. The other is connected and external agents. So child agents are one way, and think of those as lightweight specialists, right? So the child agents, what makes them different is they live within your parent agent, hence the name child. And they share the same tools and the knowledge as your parent agent. So this is really good where maybe you have a single team building your agent, but you still want to have that separation as far as what the agent specializes in, and that lightweight specialist capability. There's also no separate publishing needed here since it is just a child of that main agent, that parent agent that you have. Connected agents, on the other hand, those are your independent full specialists. So you would use these when you want to separate the deployment lifecycle. So if you did want to be able to just shut off the agent and have a whole different team working on that agent to fix it, and maybe it just needs to operate independently. So maybe the data collection agent can be used in multiple different scenarios, and you want to be able to have it used standalone or within your parent agent. That allows you to do this. When you want to own topic and conversation flows, that's another way. That multi-team collaboration is another reason you'd use connected agents. Again, you could have a totally different team building and maintaining a connected agent that you just then consume in your main parent agent. Now with these, they do require that they be sort of their own independent agents. They need to be published first before you can consume them in your main agent that you have orchestrating all this. But those are really kind of the distinct benefits here, right? If you just want to have a specialized kind of set of tools and skills within your main agent and the same team is maintaining it, and it's okay that you share the same tools and knowledge and settings and all that, then a child agent is good. If you need truly its own independent, separate agent that has different permissions, different tooling capabilities, different settings, orchestration and all that, then you would use a connected agent. Now let's dive deeper first into the whole child agents thing. So this might sound familiar to you if you've ever used Power Automate in the past and you've heard of the concept of child flows. So kind of similar situation there where it lives inside of the main agent and only executes from that main agent. So when to use child agents is really when you have one simple task or intent, right? You have that small team ownership and you really want to use it more as a logical grouping inside of your main agent so that you can better format your logic. As I mentioned, no separate configuration or authorization is needed, and these child agents would not be intended to be reused anywhere else. So it's only to be used in the main agent that you're building. So I think a lot of this is best explained if we just kind of jump over to a demo here and see what one of these child agents could look like. So let's start with a very simplistic example. So what I have built here is a sales info assistant agent. So I just want to be able to, of course, it's going to ask me to sign in again, even though I've been signed in. There we go. So with this agent, it's very straightforward. I just want it to be able to answer questions about our product catalog, things like pricing, availability of products, and all of that. Now, the thing that makes this a little bit more complicated is I want to be able to support both our US and our UK audiences. And there's different pricing catalogs, whether you're in the US or the UK. So how do I handle that, being able to answer questions about each and getting the right and accurate availability and the pricing in those two different regions? Well, that's a good use case for a child agent. So I want it to be able to still use the same knowledge. As you'll notice, I have two knowledge sources here. So I have the US Microsoft site and I have the UK Microsoft site. So that's fine. It can have the same settings as far as the same topics. And if we go into the settings here, all of this can be the same amongst the main agent and the child agent as far as should it use generative AI, what models it should use, the knowledge settings as far as should it use general knowledge and allow file uploads. All of that is fine to be the same between the main agent and the child agent. Now, some settings while we're in here looking at this to point out is if when you do want to get into using multi-agent systems, there is a setting to enable, as you notice, for connected agents. So if you're wanting to use an agent outside of your agent, not a child agent, you do need to enable this connected agent setting in your agent there. But a child agent, right? So we want to be able to determine where the user is asking the question from. If they want to know UK, US, and then route them down a very specific path. So that's a good use case for a child agent here. So what do? Well, we can go to the Agents tab and we can add a new agent. And these are where you'll see the different agent types that we mentioned. So we'll get into connected agents later, but we can just add a new child agent by clicking this button here. And I've already added these in, so let's take a look at some of these, and it'll take you, when you click that button to add a new child agent, to this screen here. So again, it's just an agent within our agent, so agent conception here. And we can define a few different things for our child agent. So what is the name of this? What does it do? And you want to be descriptive because this is going to tell your agent when it should call on your child agent in the conversation. So with the name, I'm just going to call this US Product Information Agent. And then for the description, how this agent provides details about Surface products offered in the United States. And then here's the other thing you can do. So you can have instructions for your main agent as far as what it's supposed to do. Hey, you're an agent. You're supposed to help with answering product questions and all that. But then you could also have instructions for your child agent that narrows down the scope of what this particular agent is supposed to do. So this helps from an orchestration standpoint when your main agent is trying to decide what to choose. So you can put in instructions like this agent should only answer questions about Microsoft Surface products in regards to US-based products. It should never provide details or stats on any products not offered or details about models offered outside of the United States because there can be variances on what's offered here versus in the UK. And you should only talk about Surface products and not discuss any products that are not Surface products, even if they're made by Microsoft. So you can get really granular as far as what this agent is supposed to do. So in this, I have added my knowledge source here. So notice that this one is only pointing to that US knowledge source, not the UK. So we can fine tune which knowledge sources it should have access to. Now, another thing I'm doing here, this isn't necessarily about multi-agent, but it's a cool pattern that you can follow if you want to be able to really specify when it should call which agent. So notice in this advanced section of my child agent, I have this condition capability, and I can set a variable that I've created in a topic called global.market to equal US. So as soon as this is called, I know that this is the US region. So if we go over to our topics, what I've done to be able to let my user know what region they want is, notice in this conversation, and the first thing I'm asking is, hey, what market are you wanting information in? And I have a selection. I have US or UK. So that would be the first thing before they can continue on with the conversation. They have to answer this question so it can go down the right child agent path. How I did that is with this custom topic. So I created a select market topic, and a topic is just a way for you to force your agent to go down a very specific conversation path and do things exactly in the order that you specify, rather than just say leaving it up to the orchestration engine to decide what to do. So in this topic, all I'm doing is asking a question. Hey, what market are you wanting to get information in? And this is a multi-choice, right? Now, and then I'm saving that to this global variable here called global.market. Now, how I get this to show up as the first question that pops up as soon as they load a chat. So notice when I click, hey, start a new chat, it's going to do the generic welcome, but then also immediately show that question, is I modified a system topic. So if we go into topics again and click system, we have this conversation start. So that is where you get that initial welcome message. And then I can actually just have it go and do some topic management and say immediately go to another topic, which is what I did. Hey, go to my sales market topic and ask them that question. So that's kind of how it's all tying together. They open up the agent, they immediately get this, they have to choose one of them. So I'll choose US. And now it knows it set that variable that, hey, you're in the US region here. So now I have my child agent there. I did the exact same thing now for the UK. Only difference is I went through that process. I said, hey, add a new child agent, as I changed the instructions and I changed obviously the name. So this one, you're supposed to only answer questions about UK-based products and all that. And then for the knowledge, I just put in that UK Microsoft site. So two distinct things. I want one to pull US, one to pull UK, but they all share the same settings, permissions. I don't really need to have this in any other agent, so it makes perfect sense for a child agent. So how does this all work together? So I have those two. If we go back to the overview, so Sales Info Assistant is my main agent, and we have these two child agents now. Now notice in this one, I have its own general instructions. I'm defining the purpose, that is to provide some quick access to retrieving account details. We'll get into that later because this agent is not only answering product questions, I want it to answer account questions, which is going to be our connected agent scenario. So it's doing multiple things. I'm giving it some guidelines and skills and some steps and all that. So those are just my kind of more vague general instructions of what this agent as a whole does. Now let's see this multi-orchestration in action. Now I've chosen US, notice that, and I'm going to ask it, what are the starting prices for the Surface laptop? And notice how it immediately, so we can tell in our test mode here, that when we're testing these agents, it's going to test all of your child agents and your connected agents. It's going to flow through to enable you to test that out. So I see that it called my US product information child agent. And I can see it search the knowledge source, so I can follow through what it did. It found the related sources here, and it returned back the information. So there's my Surface laptop, and even with links to be able to see where it got that info for, to confirm that it did pull that as it should from the US store, right? Now let's ask the same thing. Let's start a new session here. And this time I'm in the UK, and I want to get information just for that audience there. So same question, what is the starting point? And notice it goes to the UK product information agent. So now we don't have to worry about doing all this complex instructions like, hey, we could have did this in one agent. We could have said, if the US says that they want to get information about US, go to and call this website, so on and so forth. But that opens you up to a lot of trial and error. There's lots of room for error there, going kind of at the whim of the orchestrator itself to make sure that it recognizes that you are in the UK and that's where you want information for, and that it does pull from the right website. This way, we're forcing it via these child agents to know exactly where to go when, and if it's in that child agent, we know it's only going to return information about the US or the UK or the market that I'm interested in. So again, I did the same thing. Notice the currency changed when I did that. So, and then the link, again, I can verify that it is pointing to the UK website there. So that's just a more simplistic example of a child agent and kind of how those would work. If you want to see something slightly on the more complex side, we can take a look at this pattern here. So I have a hiring agent, and this is part of our Copilot Studio Agent Academy curriculum. And for this agent, I want the hiring agent to be my main agent that orchestrates a lot of different things. So as we are hiring someone, I need to do a lot of things. I need to be able to have this agent upload resumes for someone that's applying. I also need to be able to have it summarize some things in the resume and add that to our Dataverse store where we store that information, and even answer questions about the job roles that we have and help us prep for interviews. So we're going to have a main hiring agent that helps to orchestrate all of these different tasks in one. And how are we going to do that? With a mixture of child and connected agents. Now let's look at the child agents first. So for this scenario, I want to do a lot of different things. So let's go into the agent tab and notice how I have a child agent called application intake agent. So for this one, I want this agent to be a narrow specialist where all it does is take an application for a job, extracts the resume, summarizes it, and uploads it. And that's all it does. It's not going to go and try to get information about any jobs or anything like that, or roles. It's not going to help us prep for the interview. It's just going to summarize the resume, upload it, and submit a job application. That's it. So we have kind of these, again, instructions. We're not doing the whole topic thing right here, the conditional. We're going to let the orchestrator, in this case, determine when it should call this particular child agent. And we do that because of this description and the instructions is how it knows. So we have some really detailed instructions in this case as far as what it should do. Notice in the instructions in your child agent, you can call specific tools. Again, these tools in your child agent are shared with your main agent. So we're going to call this agent flow in this case to do some resume uploads. And then we have another agent flow that summarizes a resume. So we're going to ask it to call each of those, and then another agent flow that creates a job application. So this is doing all this kind of stuff for us. We're applying some rules as far as what it should format and all of that. So how does this child agent work? So I can tell it to process this resume, and we'll take a look at, we can use a child agent to even put in and process some files that we upload. So notice that I had this paperclip icon, and I could add a file into my chat. So when I say process this resume, it's going to go and figure out, okay, what do we have? What kind of skills, what kind of tools do I have in my agent as a parent agent to do that? Well, it'll look at the description of our child agent there, that it's to help process resumes, and then it will go and start executing that. So what we're looking at now is all the actions that it's taking inside of that child agent. Like we told it to do the resume upload flow. We told it to call the summarize resume flow, and then eventually the job application flow. So we can see in real time as it goes through each of these. Now this one is doing a lot more than the example that we looked at before with calling all those agent flows. So it is going to take a little bit more time. But we can see as it kind of fills out some of these inputs. So it was able to get the resume number. So it created for us automatically. And then there is that summary. And this is actually using an AI prompt behind the scenes to do this summarization as well. And so now we have this whole summary and the candidate name, and then now there is our reply that it processed the resume, and I have all of that detail that I wanted. So the key skills, the experience, projects, and all that. And that was all done through my child agent that we have. Okay, so hopefully we have a good understanding of child agents, what they do, kind of how those work. Now let's talk about connected agents because this is where the story gets really interesting. Now, as I mentioned, connected agents aren't just Copilot Studio agents. We'll be looking at an example of Copilot Studio, but we can do a lot more. So if you are working with a team of pro devs and they've built agents with a Microsoft 365 Agents SDK, or maybe they have agents in Foundry, you don't have to be siloed and only use those agents in those places. You can add those in as connected agents and have a multi-agent pattern that mixes Copilot Studio and some of these other tools, as well as Fabric data agents. So those are all supported. Now, connected agents, use those when you start to feel like your main agent is having too many tools to choose from. So it can be really easy, like again, when you're trying to build an agent that does a lot. As you notice in my child agent, I already have 3 agent flows. That's getting to be a lot. So maybe it makes sense to separate out the whole interview process of that, where I want to be able to answer interview questions, get information about job roles, see what jobs we have open and all that, into its own separate agent, since we're starting to get a lot of tools. Also, do this when tools start to look too similar and you notice that your agent is getting confused. So what's a good example of that? Let's switch back to this agent here and look at the tools. So notice how we have create job application, resume upload, summarize resume, right? Now, you don't see it here because I'm using it in the flow, but I actually have a prompt called summarize resume and I have a flow called summarize resume. If I were trying to use both of these natively in my agent, it can be very easy for the agent to get confused at when to call which one. If you're getting a lot of tools start to show up with similar names, similar things that they do. So that would be an example there. Another reason you'll use connected agents is when multiple teams own different part of the solution. Again, that whole maintainability, collaboration standpoint of the benefits here, you can have a totally independent team working on a connected agent while you focus on your main agent and the child agents there. Another big one, when agents need separate authorization, authentication settings, or even models. So one of the things that we can do in Copilot Studio, if we go into the settings, is we can tell it, actually it was right here on the overview page, we can tell it what model to use. So we're using GPT 4.1 default right now, but what if in another agent we wanted to do more deep reasoning? Right? And it was all about deep analysis and all that. We might want to switch to GPT-5, the reasoning model for that. So by separating it out into a connected agent, we can have our main agent using the default, which is cheaper and better for generic scenarios and task. But we can have our connected agent utilizing that deep reasoning capability there with that model and really specializing or using an anthropic model, whatever you're trying to do. So really get granular and specific to the problem that you're trying to solve. Another reason, again, is all about those settings. So I might want my main agent not to use general knowledge because I want it to follow very specific paths. But maybe in a connected agent where it's doing some general chit chat and all that, I do want it to use general knowledge. So I could have it turned off on my main agent, and then I can have it turned on in a connected agent to mix and match those capabilities. Same thing with using information from the web. Probably don't want to do that on my main agent level, but I might want to do that in a connected agent to do something very specific, depending on the use case. Same pattern goes for whether you want to enable file uploads, code interpreter, and all these features. You can mix and match when you're using connected agents. The other one, they must be published and deployed independently. So that is good. Again, if we want to be able to have an agent that we can use on its own without having to call the main agent, that's another good use case. And these are reusable. So I can have a connected agent that's standalone and use it in multiple different agents. All right, so let's go back to those same scenarios we were looking at, and now let's see what the connected agent angle looks like. So we'll start again with our friendly sales info assistant. Now, if we look at the instructions for this, notice how it wasn't just answering product questions. One of the things that I wanted it to do is also retrieve account details and contact details. Well, how am I going to do that? I really don't want to have to bake in all the instructions and add in all the tools for that because I already have another agent called this data lookup agent that does exactly that. So ideally, I would just take this data lookup agent, which in this case is just pointing to some of our Dataverse tables to answer questions about our account, contact details, and all that, and use this as a connected agent inside of my main sales assistant agent there. And then this can keep being used as is. So this is its own independent standalone agent. So I can ask it questions and use this independently, like what are our accounts in Texas? And we can see how it works. It just goes and calls all of those data sources. It knows to find the account table and it can return some information for me. So it's going to pass in that I want to search for Texas in this case in my search query. And there you go. So we have all of our accounts there. So this is its own standalone thing. I can use this anywhere where I need to do some account and contact data lookup, which could be multiple use cases and in different agents. So to make this connected, the first thing I need to do is go to the settings of my data lookup agent and make sure again that that is toggled on, this option to let other agents connect and use this one, because if it's not, we won't be able to consume this. The other thing is we do want to make sure it's published, again, because if it's not published, we won't be able to add this as a connected agent. So make sure it is. Looks like this one was published back on the 10th. Now we'll go back to our sales info assistant agent where we have these instructions and we want to be able to use and get those account and contact details. And we'll go back to our agents tab and we'll add an agent. But this time, instead of the child agent, we'll be able to see a list of all of the published agents that have that setting enabled to allow other agents to connect to it right here. So you notice I have both my hiring agent and my interview agent, as well as that data agent, which I'm not seeing because it's already connected here. This is also where you would go if you want to connect to an external agent. So if I want to connect to a Foundry agent, I could click on that, authenticate, point to it. Same thing with Agents SDK. I would just put in the endpoint there. All right, so I just selected it from this list, and that's why we already have this now, our data lookup agent. And notice how we can tell the relationship. So this one is a connected agent. It's its own standalone thing. So we'll look at that. We have a similar kind of screen here. Now, with the connected agents at this level, we don't define the instructions. That's in the agent itself, but we do need to define the description. So this is telling our main agent when should it call this connected agent, and that's call this to perform lookups for information about accounts and contacts. So that's really all that we need to be able to tell the orchestrator that, hey, this is when you call this connected agent. Other important settings to look at here when we're working with connected agents are this right here, to past conversation history. So this is very important. Obviously, you might disable this if you don't want to have that, but in most circumstances, if your user is in a long conversation, you want to be able to pass that context to the data lookup agent or your connected agent in this case, so it has that and can use that in its response. You can also do things like inputs, and you can also define what should happen after your connected agent runs. So do you want it to send a specific response, all that, and then the output. So there's lots of things we can get into here as far as customizing the output. We'll keep it pretty generic, pretty simple. So now we're in our sales info assistant. Let's see if we can ask it something like, and we have our instructions. Again, that's the key. So it knows kind of what it's supposed to do. And we'll say, what are all of the accounts in Texas? All right. Oh, we got to answer here. So let's say we're in the US region. And then we'll ask that one more time. So now there we go. Now we see that it's calling that connected agent for us. So And then in the input, it's saying there's our description to retrieve all account details for that located in Texas. So it's going to pass that into the connected agent and take that to know when to look up that information. The show rationale can just explain why it called this connected agent in this case, if you want to see more details. And there we go. So we can see that it called the agent and it did all of these actions. So it looked into the account details, the connector action and all that, and then returned a response. So here are all the accounts and everything that we need basically for in Texas. So again, that's a more simplistic scenario of kind of that connected agent. Let's go back over and we'll look at our hiring agent now and see again a similar type of pattern here. So what we have in our child agent is we have a separate interview agent. So as I mentioned, our child or our main agent there for hiring is getting very busy. There's lots of flows. We already have child agents. This is its own kind of separate logical thing. I might want people to go in here and be able to do quick lookups of different candidate information and job roles that we have. So we have this own standalone agent for that. And it has its own settings as well. So again, we do have that connected agent setting on, but this one, again, we have like general knowledge off, but this one we don't want to allow file upload. So that's an example of where we might have distinct settings between your main and your connected agent. And in this one, we might want to do things like code interpreter because maybe you want to create graphs that visualize, how long certain roles have been open or something like that. So we can have these distinct settings here. So what I'll ask this is, let's see if this can give us a summary here of our Power Automate Specialist role. So I have some instructions already built for this. This one is pointing to our Dataverse tables as knowledge in this case. And notice it does have unique tools as well. It actually is using MCP servers, some of the out-of-the-box ones. So that's another thing that this is doing. So you'll be able to schedule interview meetings. But now it's searching through the knowledge. So there's all of the Dataverse tables that we have, and it's using that to get that detail of this Power Automate Specialist role. So I can use this completely independent of my main hiring process and get these quick answers here. So it looks like I got an answer, and if you're curious, this is all stored in Dataverse in the back end. So we can look at the job roles. Here's Power Automate Specialist, and I can see exactly where it's getting that information from, right? So it's just doing that lookup in this case to that Dataverse data. Okay, so that's all good. This works well here. We can take a look again at the tools. So we're using those two MCP servers. And this agent also has a custom topic. So one of the things that I want this agent to do is to generate an interview prep document. So if I know that I'm going to interview someone for this Power Automate Specialist role, I can say, okay, take their job profile information, take their resume, and generate some unique questions for me based off of those about what we might need to ask. So that's what this topic enables us to do. It's actually going to call Power Automate Agent Flow, and it's going to call a prompt that generates and outputs a Word document for me. So I can do all of this in this agent, but I want this to be part of my hiring process as well, because I would love one agent that people can go to not only process and upload new resumes, but do all of this capability that we have here. So we can just do the same thing. We'll go back to our main hiring agent. We'll go into our tools, and we will add a new tool, and we'll select go into agents, add a new agent, and we'll select our application intake agent here, which is interview agent, which is what I did here. So same thing, you do need to make sure you have a detailed description. So I'm saying this is to assist with the interview process and provide information about the role and all that. We do want to pass that conversation history. And now we have that all here and ready to use. So what's an example of how this could work? Let's look at that kind of interview prep example. So if we look back at our Dataverse table, I have this job application here for Avery, and she applied for a Power Platform Architect role. So now we're at the place where we want to be able to do an interview. So I can ask it to create an interview prep doc for that job application. And because we have those descriptions in that connected agent, it knew exactly what to do, and it called our interview connected agent in this scenario. So it's going to call that. It's taken in kind of my prompt and made it a little bit more descriptive to pass into that connected agent as far as what to do, include relevant details about the job role, candidate requirements, and suggested interview questions. And it should reply back here in a minute. It is calling that agent flow in the background. There you go. To generate the file. So here it is, the interview prep file. That is a link that we can open. So we'll open that file here. Slowly but surely, Word will open for me, just so I can show you that it actually did something cool. So there's all that information. There's the job number, the job title, the description, and then more importantly, if we scroll down, here are those kind of interview questions. So can you describe your experience designing scalable Power Platform architecture? So that's cool. It generated all of this with AI, just taking the job requirement information, the candidate background, and some of the requirements that I put in there and generated these questions. Of course, I can add to this, vet them, not just blindly accept what AI generates for us, but have a good starting point for this interview here. So that is Connected Agent. Now, as I mentioned, one of the benefits of this whole multi-agent capability is the ability to enable and disable. So if at any point, say that interview process wasn't working, but I didn't want to take down my whole hiring agent, I can just toggle that to off. So now that's still there. I didn't delete the interview agent. It's just not accessible to the main agent. So if I were to ask this same question to create an interview prep doc, notice how it's struggling. It's trying to go to the application intake agent, but now it doesn't know how to do that because it doesn't have that skill. It doesn't have that connected agent. So I can just disable that. I can remove any instructions that points to tell it to go to that, put some backup instructions in there temporarily, and then re-enable it once I am assured that it's fixed. So it does allow you to have that kind of modular architecture there when you're working with these. Okay, so let's go back to the slides and let's talk about, we got a good idea of how we integrate these, but what else can we do here? So as I mentioned with connected agents, we can integrate with Foundry. So, and this is important because there are multiple options for building agents. You know, Copilot Studio isn't the only way to go about this. There is Foundry for more of that kind of pro code approach. And they work together well. So not only can we use Foundry as a connected agent, but we can import custom models from Foundry and even indexes as well. So there's lots of integration baked in, of course, with a connected agent. So what's an example of this? Well, maybe you have an agent in Copilot Studio that answers questions about internal policies, right? So it's connected to some SharePoint knowledge and all that, and it's really good at answering those questions. But maybe you also need to do something a little bit more sophisticated, like detecting fraud. And your claims department might have built a fraud detection agent, and you want the two to talk. So not only can you have one agent that can help detect fraud, but then also answer questions about your policies, you can connect those two and have one agent that does both. So there's good use cases for each of those and when they would work together. So when we look at the bigger picture, of course, we have Copilot Studio and everything that it's great for with enabling the connected agents, the out-of-the-box pre-built actions and tooling and the default orchestrator, so you don't have to build that from scratch. But if you need to, this can always be extended and expanded and integrated with more of your kind of pro code tooling, whether that is Foundry and the agent service or the custom models, whatever that might be. Now, we talked about all the benefits so far of multi-agents, and you might be thinking these are great. I'm going to make everything multi-agent, but there are some trade-offs that I think is important to be aware of. So when you do start building multi-agent orchestrations here, one of the biggest things is you have the potential for higher latency because there are additional hops. So when we were testing those agents, there was a little bit of a delay in getting the answer because I did have to first recognize what your intent was, what your question was. Then I had to recognize where to pull that from, call that child or that connected agent, and then that child or connected agent has to do its thing and all its actions. So it is just an additional hop that you have, but it is often worth it for the increase in, being able, all the benefits that we talked about earlier, being able to have that separation of logic for testing. Slightly could be more to manage as well. Just the more agents you have out there, the more that you have to manage and be concerned about governance and overhead and all that. So just do keep that in mind and know the trade-offs and just make sure that it does make sense for your scenario if you're thinking about going down this path. But to that end, some other kind of hidden benefits too that to this approach, or what I mentioned earlier, as far as that ability to decouple your logic. So that on-off button is really nice to have, so you don't break your whole main agent, and you can kind of just enable, disable as you need to certain child agents or connected agents. And then again, that goes back to being able to ship your changes safely without impacting your entire agent as well. Flexible patterns to be able to tell when to invoke a child or connected agent. So as we saw in those demos, you could invoke it from a topic or the main agent instructions. So it's really flexible as far as how you want to handle that. And just that cleaner modular architecture for more complex solutions there. There are some limitations just to know about for today. If you want to use Fabric data agents, those do have limited support at the current time. You can't reference those from instructions, and they're not supported if your main agent that you want to build that in runs in Microsoft 365 Copilot. So those are the things to watch out for. There's citations, as we saw when we asked it for the Surface devices, and it gave us the reference to the link. Sometimes when you're using connected child agents, those don't get preserved. So just watch out for that as well. General knowledge behavior, this is a big one, follows back to the main agent. So if other agents don't use built-in general knowledge, it may still rely on that kind of model knowledge there. And connected agent reuse limits. So an agent that you're using as a main agent, so say in that case, let me show you an example of this. Our hiring agent, I can't use this as a connected agent, right? This will have to be my main agent, and I can't enable this to be used anywhere else. Like, let's go back and look at our hiring agent, for example. And if I go into agents and add, I wouldn't be able to add the hiring agent in there because that is already consuming connected agents, right? So those are the main limitations there. I will gladly answer questions. I do want to leave some resources too to learn more. So what you saw, that whole example of the hiring agent, is available in our Agent Academy. So this is kind of self-paced, hands-on curriculum that you can go through. And I don't know what happened there. My PowerPoint decided to just completely crash. That's great. We'll get it loaded back up real quick. But that's really, let me just actually show you here. This is Agent Academy. So this is what I'm talking about. We have an operative section here, and this is kind of more advanced patterns like multi-agent. So we have all the instructions that you need, including the background of why you would use multi-agents and all that, connected agents, and the instructions to build this. So if you want to build this your own and see how it works, that's a good resource. The other one is this MCS Labs repo. So that example that we looked at for the Sales Info Assistant is actually here in the Labs folder. And there's a multi-agent lab. So you can build this yourself and go through it on your own time and kind of see how this works and get a better understanding of how these patterns behave and all of that. So those are two really great resources for you if you want to learn more. And with that, I don't know if we have any questions, things that we want to address. Take a look at the chat here and see. Okay, looks like I have a few. Let me get caught up here. Okay, regarding the setting to allow other agents to connect to this one, is it all or any agent that can connect to it, or is there any approved list? So that's a good question. That would be all or any agent when you enable that setting. So there's not any kind of approved list or anything like that. Once you enable that, anything will be able to connect to that. So that's a really good question there. If you needed to answer questions from 30 different languages on the same site, would you have one child agent for each language? That could be one pattern. I mean, it really just comes down to what you can get to work. Like as I mentioned, when you get into multilingual and languages like that, you can do it all through instructions technically, but you just might run into a little bit of a headaches of it consistently defaulting to the right thing. So I think the whole approach of like the topic and the child agent is really about consistency and making sure that it follows that same path every single time. So it just depends on what you're trying to accomplish there. Product child agent, which type of variable did you use, topic or global? Okay, good question there. Let's go back to that and take a look. So in the topic, I used a global variable for that because if you are using a child agent, you need that to be able to be accessed outside of there. So you want to make sure that you do use a global variable for that. Does it use AI Builder for the summarization prompt? It does. Another great question. So if we look at our tools here, in that hiring example, we're using AI Builder all over the place for a lot of this capability. So notice that we have actually clicked on the wrong one. As I mentioned, their names are the same, so easy to click on the right one. We have a summarized resume prompt. And that's where we're doing all of that for us. So another benefit, just so you know, not necessarily multi-agent related, but of using prompts in this case is if your agent is using a particular model, but you want the prompt to do something else, you can change the model at the prompt level as well. So depending on what you're trying to do here. But yeah, we just have this prompt where we're having it summarize and get the cover letter, the job roles, and then output that. And we're using Dataverse grounding in this case as well, directly in the prompt to get that summarization. Cool. And then another question, just going through here. And stop me, Victor, if we need more time.
No, no, no. This is good. This is good,
Cool.
man. This is amazing.
Awesome. Okay, so I see Douglas has a question here about the operative course regarding MCP servers. You're working through that. Trying to configure, oh, okay, user profile wasn't available after joining the Frontier program. That one, the other thing you might want to make sure is that they're in the preview URL if you're having trouble there, and just verify that you did sign up for the Frontier program. I know some people were noticing that the agents were showing in the admin center, but they hadn't actually went through and clicked that button to enable the program there. So I would say check if you're in the preview environment and then that is actually enabled, and message me on LinkedIn too, or after if you're still having issues. Oh, and then all the Asian Academy questions here. Will operative include video instruction? Yes, we actually have one more video to record on that. So hopefully in the next 2 weeks or so, we'll have videos launching that go correspond with all of those missions there. I think I'm caught up. I don't know if there's anything else. Oh, wow. Okay, so I see another one here about connected agents real quick. Can you restrict only, okay, we answered that earlier, to specific agents? You can't. Can you also use a variable to detect user language and append to the knowledge URL? Oh, that's interesting. I think you could actually do that too. That would be interesting to try out. I don't see why you couldn't do that. Okay, now I think I am caught up.
Awesome, awesome. I think the homework for us to complete the Asian Academy,
Asian Academy.
including myself. I need to catch up there for sure. And then maybe the first one who does in this group wins a prize.
Oh,
But
you get a
yeah,
badge if you finish it. So everyone gets a badge. So there you go.
there you go. The first one here, Scott Roller, will buy us dinner. First time we meet in a conference this year. Maybe that's a deal. Awesome, awesome. Well, April, thank you so very much for this content. Amazing. I know 1 hour is probably not enough for this. Luckily, we have an opportunity to watch the video again, and we can pause. We can expand a little bit, so it'll be good to do that. One of the things I have been doing with these videos, though, I'm throwing that into Google Notebook, and I'm trying to extract as much information as possible in a educational material format. And so this is my plan when we finish the program, just to hand over a PDF with what AI thinks these lessons, the content were. So this is essentially what it's thinking about when we generate this ebook format or infographics on this session. So there is a funny one from Chris's lesson. I think there was like a huge AI hallucination demon somewhere, which he it's pretty funny based on his way to presenting it. But anyhow, so this is something we want to give to the participants of this program. It'll be really nice, I think, for us to kind of scroll through the pages and kind of remember what topic and content we cover in some of the lessons. Once again, April, thank you. We'll generate your lessons infographic, April. I don't know if it's going to look like the secret agent movie, bombs floating everywhere. But we'll do that. I'll send it over to you. Again, watch this video again, review, sign up to the agent AI agent training from Microsoft. There is a lot there that we are not going to be able to cover here. So I would strongly encourage you to complete those programs and also provide feedback to April and team. So amazing, amazing, amazing. We still have 4 minutes. I'm not sure if there are additional questions, maybe regarding the lesson or the program. You are free to do that now if you have questions. Nope. Everybody's quiet.
I just wanted to take a moment and say thank you, April. I have all these connected agents that I didn't realize should have been child agents, so I've got lots of work to do. Thank you for making that like crystal clear and helping me understand those use cases.
Absolutely. Well, happy to help.
Amazing. I don't see any hands up. Anybody? Here's your chance. You can even unmute yourself and say thank you, April, or thank you. Maybe
Well, thank you, Victor.
Chris.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was great. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, no, this is amazing. Like when we upload these videos, I know the quality cannot compare with videos that are curated and crafted. But what I love about this format for the program is that you have a chance to also kind of voice your experience. So it is a true, though virtual classroom experience, and I love this format. So anyhow, we are at time, and we'll see you again next week. Thank you, April. I'll see you in about a month in Vancouver and Seattle. So take care, and
Awesome.
we'll see
Thanks, all.
you then. All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, April.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.